So our first session gave us a bit of a high-level view of some of the big picture issues, and this next session is specific to North Asia, but more also specific to the experience of Australian export sectors in those markets. So in this session we'll be hearing a bit more from the industry organisations and the industry representatives that are actually actively involved in exporting and dealing with some of the issues there. So a bit of a change of pace. Our first speaker was to be Jason Strong of Australian Agricultural Company. He contacted me over the weekend with a bit of a family issue, so he wasn't able to make it, but we have a very good substitute in Travers. Si is the General Manager of Branded Beef. He was appointed in June 2014, and he's been in the cattle industry for about 20 years. He's had engagement with a whole range of different organisations, and was General Manager of the Wallamumbi Pastoral Company for 8 years, a property, an aggregation based in New South Wales, and also involved in the MSA grading program with MLA. So Si's got a wealth of experience to bring and knowledge to bring, and he's going to talk to us a bit about their experiences in the export market in North Asia. So please welcome Si.
Thank you. Again, just following up from that, Jason sends his apologies for not being able to be here today. And he handed over the reins to me yesterday morning when I got back from North Asia at 7:30 in the morning, so that's quite timely. What isn't quite so timely is I came back from a balmy North Asia to a beautiful 15 degrees at 7:30 yesterday morning in Brisbane and arrived here at 7:30 this morning to -2. Thank you to the Institute for the opportunity for AAK to tell you what we're up to, and specifically more what we're doing in North Asia and how we're handling that market. I have got Jason's speech here. He had it ready to go. So if it appears that I'm reading from a prepared speech, which I normally don't do, I apologise for that. But you will get the Jason Strong version of events. My job is General Manager of the Branded Beef Group, which is everything post a traditional pastoral company or traditional AAK as a pastoral company. So I look after the chain of events once it leaves our breeding properties. So I look after, Branded Beef now looks after the supply chain, our processing capabilities, our sales and marketing of boxed beef, obviously, and shipping and logistics. For anyone that's followed what AAK has been up to in the last 12 months, we've gone from, or we're well down the track of going from a traditional pastoral company to becoming a vertically integrated beef producer and marketer. So in the 2 years that I've been with AAK in the beef group, we've gone from processing a little bit under 20% of our herd, so selling a little bit under 20% of our herd as boxed beef, to this year we'll do 87% of our herd will be sold as boxed beef as opposed to live cattle. So we've made a big change in the particularly last 12 months, but in the last 2 years down the path of becoming a vertically integrated business. So our iconic cattle stations, nothing changes there as far as the Burnett Downs and Anthony Lagoons. They're going to remain an important part of our program, and they're integral to becoming a vertically integrated company. So our idea behind that is not just taking the profit from selling cattle, but taking the value that we believe exists along each part of that vertical supply chain. And we believe there's opportunity to do this because we see a rising demand not just for beef, but for the finest quality beef, traceable and safe beef. And that demand is being driven by a rapidly growing middle class around the world, not just in North Asia. It's a growing market for premium foods, which is what we want to be producing at AAK, and we would argue that Australia needs to be producing. It's going to be the most massive explosion ever in global wealth. By 2050, the total global middle class will grow to 9 billion people. The fastest growth will occur in the next 5 years. 3 billion more people joining the middle class, demanding about 60% more animal-sourced foods. A lot of that growth is going to come from Asia, North Asia in particular, as China becomes more prosperous. Asia's middle class is now about 600 million people. In the next 15 years, that'll increase 5 times to 2.3 billion. That's more mouths to feed, but more importantly, an increased demand for safe, high-protein foods. And other high-quality foods as well. A more prosperous population is going to demand foods that right now they consider a luxury. At AACo, we certainly see we're selling a luxury good. We produce some of the finest Wagyu beef in the world. Our Master Kobe beef, which is our full-blood production of marble score 9+, recently won the grand champion at the World Wagyu Congress. And our F1 or crossbred Wagyu, our Darling Downs Wagyu, recently won the Queensland Fine Food Award. So, we're constantly validating that we're on that path to producing some of the finest Wagyu in the world. Those Wagyu products are sold to some of the best restaurants in the world currently. So, in Dubai, we supply Seafire, we supply Fire and Ice, we supply Zuma. Domestically, we supply Nobu, we supply Saki, and that's the market that we're targeting in AACo with our Wagyu. Our vision is instead of going to a restaurant to buy a vintage wine with a steak, you're going there for the steak, not the wine. We want to treat beef like vintage wines, and at some of these restaurants our Wagyu is sold at vintage wine prices. So we're seeing an increased number of people being able to afford beef and premium beef. And that's where AACo wants to operate, at the premium end of the market in everything we do, whether it's Wagyu or our short-fed or even our manufacturing beef. We're producing beef from the Livingston facility at Darwin as manufacturing beef, but we still want that manufacturing beef to be seen as high quality in the top end of the price pyramid for manufacturing beef. We will differentiate our products, but not the quality. There's enough market for beef in Asia and globally that if your product is of the highest quality, there is no reason you shouldn't operate at the top of the price pyramid. Because with all this incredible growth and global demand, we won't be able to feed all of that mega middle class. AACo has said for several years that Australia can't be the food bowl of Asia, which I think you've also heard from other speakers this morning. But what we can be is its delicatessen, and AACo can be its premium butcher. I don't think we should be blinded by the incredible growth in Asia. It's going to be more visible because it's on our doorstep and because the growth is going to be so fast. We shouldn't ignore the incredible potential of the Middle East and the wealth and willingness to pay for high quality goods in markets like the Europe and US. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is fairly close to becoming a reality, and that will hopefully give companies like AACo much greater access to the lucrative US market. There have been some reports this week that the US is resisting calls to lower agricultural tariffs as part of the TPP. Hopefully this is a negotiation position rather than a final one. Regardless, even with the current tariff barriers, AACo currently gets about 15% of our box beef revenue from North America. But Asia, particularly North Asia, can show us the way to market to the rest of the world. It's certainly the most important single market for AACo. We recently announced our results. AACo operate on a financial year to the end of March, so we recently announced our results for the last 12 months to March this year, and North Asia accounted for around 40% of our total box beef sales. Of that, the majority of it's in Korea, followed by Japan, and a small amount to China. The China market for us currently only accounts for around about 6% of our total revenue, and the large percentage of that is around what we call byproducts, so hides and raw products for the pharmaceutical market. It was almost so that 40% the previous year, but what changed was that we also increased our sales by 42%. So that's about a 70% increase on our sales into North Asia in 1 year. That's being driven by a number of factors: a growing population, an excellent relationship with our customers. What it's not being driven by yet are the trade agreements with our 3 major North Asian trading partners. The Korean and Japanese trade agreements only came into force in December and January respectively. The Chinese trade agreement, as we heard, won't actually begin until later this year. These three trade agreements are going to help lower the economic barriers to trade. These agreements are going to help they will help Australia compete on a level or nearer to level playing field. I'll give you an example. In Korea, we had an 8% tariff differential between Australia and the US prior to the first phase of these agreements. So we had a 40% tariff and the US had a 32% tariff because they'd struck agreements before Australia had. The Korea and Australia Free Trade Agreement reduces this to be a 5.3% differential immediately, and in 13 years' time there'll be no difference because we'll have no tariffs. So it's not quite a level playing field, but it's a lot more level than it would have been had we not had these agreements earlier. And we've got to continue to expand that differential. What's important for us with these incremental, as we get these incremental reductions in the tariff, for us is to be on our front foot with our customers to negotiate how those reductions are going to be applied. And that's one of the most important things that's come out of this for our company and any other company dealing direct with customers in Asia. Our message is to make sure you're on the front foot to establish how these are going to be applied and to make sure that we get the most benefit from them. For us, in a market like Korea, we already have a massive footprint. We already have a premium price being taken by the consumer for our product. So what do we do with those differentials rather than just a price decrease to the consumer? Meat and Livestock Australia estimates that within 10 years the Korean FTA is going to be worth about $250 million a year extra to the Australian beef industry. We see similar benefits with China, where our tariffs also reduced to zero over 9 years. In Japan we'll end up with tariffs of between 19 and 23%, but the value of the FTA will still be worth almost $400 million a year to the beef industry. These are critical and long-awaited agreements. But we shouldn't see them as a game changer or panacea for the industry. As I've said, it just puts us on a more level playing field in most instances. What's more important for us are growing and maintaining long-term relationships with our customers in those markets. In Korea, for example, we've been supplying OK Meats, who in turn supplies Emart, which is Korea's largest premium supermarket. We've been supplying them with Wagyu for nearly 12 years now. This is our biggest customer globally. That's a relationship which has been in place and grown since well before the Korean Free Trade Agreement was even contemplated. We know and understand what they want, and in turn they trust the quality and supply of our beef, and just as importantly the consistency of our supply. The free trade agreements will give us a competitive advantage only in that it allows us to use our competitive advantage. And that's what I meant about being smart about the way we apply the reductions in tariffs. This will give us a level playing field that means the quality of our beef and its traceable supply chain will be the real competitive advantage against the likes of Brazil and the US production. Last month, Brazil and China reached a new trade agreement, and beef will be a big part of that. So the trade agreement we have won't give us an advantage against Brazil. The trade agreement with Japan won't. In all likelihood, give a sustainable advantage against the US once the TPP is agreed. We have to find a sustainable competitive advantage ourselves, and we're happy to compete and do that. And if Brazil competes on price, it will mean more people eating beef and wanting a better beef dining experience, which is what AACo in Australia can deliver. So we don't see that as being a competitor to us that's going to, sure there's going to be some short-term impact, but long-term, it gets more people with a taste for beef eating beef, which drives more people wanting a higher quality production, which we can give them. We can also give people a story, and it's a real competitive advantage. There's a fascination, not just in Asia, but around the world with the Australian outback. We're using that imagery and romance of the bush to help sell our beef at AACo. Diners may be eating the finest beef in the world, but they are buying the story that comes with it. At AACo, we have quite clearly stated that building an authentic Australian brand is one of our key strategic objectives. We're not relying on leveraging the MLA's True Aussie brand or other efforts such as Twiggy Forest's proposed national brands for exports. We're creating our own brand that differentiates our beef as the finest quality Australian beef. In our corporate strategy, creating that brand is of equal importance with objectives such as optimising our production, developing our cattle procurement capabilities. We are saying that the marketing of our beef is of equal importance to the way we produce it and the cost at which it comes through our supply chain. By creating the authentic Australian story, we're giving consumers a reason to consider us as the premium product. We have to back that up by actually producing the world's finest quality beef. And we're confident at AACO that we can do that, and we're confident that the Australian industry can do that. Now, despite all the progress that has been made with these trade agreements, there are still some challenges that face the industry in North Asia. There are still many non-tariff barriers in place, like China for instance, such as limited access for chilled beef and 100% HGP-free access only. Meat and Livestock Australia estimates that the cost of these non-tariff barriers in North Asia are as much as $230 million a year. So there is still much work to be done, and a lot of those non-tariff barriers can only be removed or mitigated through us working closely with our customers and by the governments working closely with our customers' governments. That'll take time, but the trade agreements give us a platform to do this at this point in time. As trade grows, we'll see more of these barriers removed. We need to be patient, but we can't take our eye off maintaining our markets as a company. What does the future hold for the industry in North Asia? It's a bright future, but it's one we'll have to continue to work at. The trade agreements with Japan, Korea and China are good, only in that they provide a level playing field. We needed a level playing field, undoubtedly, but we can't think that just because we have trade agreements in place that we can sit back and enjoy instant revenue growth. We have to use improved access to compete where we have a competitive advantage on quality, traceability and the authentic Australian story. Thank you.